So the race to create artificial general intelligence, AGI, is definitely on. And it's a huge deal. It promises to solve humanity's biggest problems, but it could also create catastrophic new ones. So why is everyone moving so fast? Well, it turns out this high-stakes race is caught in a strange and powerful paradox, where the smartest move for any single country might just be the worst possible move for all of us. Let's break down the logic of this incredible global dilemma. Here's how we're going to tackle this, using a really powerful framework from a new Rand Corporation report. First, we'll look at what's actually at stake. Then, we'll dive into some game theory to understand the strategic logic of the race. We'll see how that logic creates two totally different futures, how the game changes over time, and finally, how we might, just might, escape the dilemma altogether. All right, first things first, let's set the stage. The AGI race is really defined by this massive tension between its incredible promise and its terrifying peril. And you have to understand this tension to get why nations are making the choices they're making right now. To get a sense of the incentive here, just look at that number. We are not talking about a small competitive edge. According to some estimates in the Rand report, AGI could unlock up to $25.6 trillion in annual global economic value. That is a gigantic prize. The country that gets there first could gain just immense geopolitical and military advantages. And that number? That's the engine driving this entire race. But that massive promise comes with an equally massive peril. On one hand, yeah, you've got the potential to cure diseases, end poverty, create unimaginable prosperity. But on the other hand, you've got the risk of creating an uncontrollable superintelligence, enabling new weapons of mass destruction, and just triggering total global instability. So here's the crucial question. If the risks are that high, why isn't everyone hitting the brakes? Well, to answer that, we need to stop thinking about this as a tech race and start thinking about it as a strategic game. So how do we make sense of all this? To understand the strange logic that's compelling nations to race forward, we need a tool from strategic thinking called game theory. And the specific tool we're going to use is the prisoner's dilemma. And fun fact, it was actually developed at the Rand Corporation way back in 1950. It's a really simple scenario that reveals this powerful paradox. Sometimes, two completely rational players, each acting in their own self-interest, end up in a situation that's way worse for both of them. It sounds totally counterintuitive, I know, but let's see exactly how it works. Okay, check out this classic setup. Let's follow the logic for prisoner A. If prisoner B stays silent, that's the first column, A's best move is to confess and walk free, right? Now, what if prisoner B confesses? That's the second column. Well, prisoner A's best move is still to confess, so they only get 5 years instead of 10. You see, no matter what the other person does, confessing is the better individual choice. So what happens? They both confess and they both get 5 years. Even though if they'd both just stayed quiet, they'd only get 1 year each. That's the dilemma. Now let's take that exact same logic and apply it to the global race for AGI. The players are different, but the strategic trap, it can be identical. So in the AGI race, countries like the US and China basically have two main choices. They can go with a baseline strategy, move carefully, prioritize safety, make sure the AI's goals align with human values. Or they can pick an accelerated strategy, just push ahead as fast as humanly possible, even if that means cutting some serious corners on safety. And this right here shows the trap perfectly. Look at it from Nation A's perspective again. If Nation B decides to play it safe, Nation A is really tempted to accelerate to win big. That's that bottom left box. But if Nation B accelerates, Nation A feels like it has to accelerate just to keep up, right? And what's the result? Both nations get pushed toward that bottom right box, the accelerated, risky path, which leads to the worst possible outcome for everyone. It is the prisoner's dilemma, but on a global scale. So just think about it for a second. If you're the leader of one of these nations and you're staring at this grid and you just can't trust what your competitor is going to do, what's your move? The cold, hard logic seems to push you in only one direction, doesn't it? But here is the most crucial finding from the entire Rand report. The game itself can actually change. It all comes down to one critical calculation. How much do you value winning versus how much do you fear losing everything? If that prize for being first feels bigger than the risk of a global catastrophe, you're stuck in a prisoner's dilemma. But, and this is a huge but, If leaders become truly convinced that the risk of a shared catastrophe is greater than any possible reward for winning, the whole game transforms. It becomes a coordination game, where cooperating isn't just a nice idea, it's the most rational move. Now, there's another layer here, because this isn't a single one-and-done choice. The AGI race is unfolding over many years. And you know what? That changes the game yet again.
This whole race is a series of decisions, an ongoing back and forth. This is what game theorists call a repeated game. And when the game gets repeated, brand new strategies suddenly become possible.
Think about it. In a one-shot game, you might as well betray your partner, right? There are no consequences. But when you have to face them again tomorrow, and the day after that, suddenly things like reputation and trust become incredibly valuable. The threat of future punishment, if you accelerate today, I'll be forced to accelerate tomorrow, can be enough to keep both sides in check, cooperating. The long-term nature of this race actually creates a real opportunity for stability. So this brings us to the final and, frankly, the most important part. If we understand the logic of the game, can we actively change the rules to avoid that worst-case outcome? Well, the report suggests that we can. So how do we escape? The model points to a pretty clear three-step strategy. First, you have to get everyone on the same page about the risks. If all the major players agree on just how catastrophic failure would be, they start to shift the game toward coordination. Second, you absolutely need verification. You need robust ways to monitor what other labs and countries are doing so you can tell if they're actually honoring their safety commitments. And third, that verification is what builds trust. When you can see that your competitor is also playing it safe, you have the confidence to do the same. That is how you escape the trap. Ultimately, the race to AGI isn't like a 100-meter dash where there's only one winner on a podium. It's way more like mountain climbing, where if one person's rope snaps, everyone on that rope might fall. The logic of the prisoner's dilemma shows us the trap we could so easily fall into, but it also shines a light on the path out. The real question is, can we shift our perspective in time to actually take it?